right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the No Guts, No Galaxy podcast 140. We are your hosts, Phil and Darren. Today is April 27th, 2016 even. What is going on, old man? How are you? Do you have your 64 ounces of hot deliciousness that is your soup bowl? Yes, you do. Look at that. That is ridiculous.
Oh man, so good. I can't even describe. 140, dude.
Do you need a moment?
140. I always need a moment, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty excited. I feel like even though 140 isn't like 200 or 500 or whatever, it's still a milestone. We've done a lot of podcasts. Anyway, I'm doing well. I'm excited that we are again. It's Wednesday.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Another week down.
It's been nice getting back onto a normal stream schedule, especially for the podcast. And one thing that I'll let everyone else out there, if you didn't know, one of the things that what me and Daddy or Mommy used to argue about, whatever you want to look at it, was the podcast turnaround. And the one thing I will say is, even though I did enjoy the editing, it took up a lot of time. And that's one thing I like about the streamcast, like we do right now. I think it was a good move.
Honestly, it's just better not to talk about it because the more you make me think about the fact that these go out unedited, the more.
Do I say enough? For those
Let's
that don't
just
know, re-listen to the ones he edited. He removed all the ums, every single one. It was like an hour
well,
podcast, 2 hours of podcast, and he'd remove every single
not just the ums, but anything that I deemed unprofessional.
Is that
I
that's
totally prefer
I
not
get it.
editing. I mean,
Setting
let's
the bar high. It's nice. It's nice. But anyways, guys,
whatever.
just want to say thank you guys for coming out. Don't forget, if you'd like to support the stream, retweets are appreciated. I'll go ahead and drop that link in the chat. It is greatly appreciated. Shout outs to everyone in chat. Hopefully you guys are having a great day, night, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. We got basically one announcement today, just quick and easy. We've got the retro Timberwolf t-shirts and the Timberwolf Grid t-shirts in stock. It's on our store. I know some of you guys wanted to know when it was live. It is live for those that did the pre-orders. Your guys is in the mail if you have not got yours already. So make sure to check that out at NoGutsNoGalaxyStore.com, and boom. So today's topic is actually one that you brought up, Mama Bear, which it's a time or two has happened, but you're pretty passionate about, and I think it's actually a really good topic. So you want to kick it off there?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, we started the day kind of trying to decide what our topic was going to be today. Yes, we often don't discuss them literally till right before the podcast, but regardless, I mean, obviously, community warfare was an option. Phase 3, that's out there. You've been participating. I've been participating. We have thoughts on that, but I don't think that's necessarily where we are going to go today. Although we can comment on it, a little bit.
I
But
think I think we did that last week pretty well.
yeah, I think we covered it at least for now. And obviously, I also don't want to say anything. We have no idea literally, we don't know what Russ is going to bring up Friday at the town hall. So there is a town hall Friday,
Has
guys.
that been announced?
No, but
It
it
just
is happening.
was. It just was.
Yeah, there's a town hall this
Boom!
Friday. I'm
Town
talking two
hall.
days. That's April 29th, the normal time. That's 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And so I have no idea what Russ is going to say, what he's going to bring up, what the numbers are behind the scenes, etc. So I felt like we would, number one, be beating a dead horse, and number two, we might be just wasting our time because of what's going to be said on Friday night. So basically, what I've wanted to talk about for a while, and we've discussed this before. Phil and I have just talked about this, just chatting. Not necessarily as a topic, but it's buckets and queues and all the things that we want in our beloved MechWarrior Online. Currently, and Phil, you can reiterate or correct me if I'm wrong, but we have the solo queue random battles, you have the group queue random battles, and then you have the various queues within community warfare, whether that be scouting missions or solo or full groups, whatever. So we have a lot of queues, a lot of buckets, a lot of things for people to do, which is great, but a lot of places for people to go. And if people tend to gravitate towards one of them, then you have less people in the other queues. And we're, not far from the potential of Solaris. Here's another queue, Solaris. There's been talk of AI and PvE, so maybe there's PvE options or co-op or whatever. The more we bring in, the more we're spreading ourselves thin as far as population goes. We have a small population, very dedicated and hardcore population, but it's not, it's not huge like World of Tanks or whatever. So are we backing ourselves into a corner? Are we wanting so much that we're going to kill maybe the core of the game, or not kill it, but or harm it, or whatever? Like there's people that are seriously frustrated right now having to wait 10, 20 minutes in community warfare queues. And I get that. I totally understand. And we've talked about, other games and what's happening. I played a lot of World of Tanks. There used to be a historical mode in World of Tanks. Basically, not enough people were playing it, so they axed it. Now playing Dreadnought today, everybody's excited about Dreadnought, playing Dreadnought. There's literally two queues in Dreadnought. There is random battles, arcade mode, whatever they call it. I forget, maybe it's not team deathmatch, but whatever. Anyway, there's that one where you have respawns, and then there's one where you don't have respawns. You kind of respawn in a fighter, a small ship or whatever. But it's as far as capital ships, you die, you lose it. Pretty much nobody in that second queue, which is the one I prefer. I like no respawns. But if it's not working, it's not working, or if people aren't liking that, then it's going to go, the way of the dinosaur. War Thunder, another one. They have arcade mode, historical mode, and realism, I think. I may not be getting all the terms correct. But regardless, again, arcade mode, tons of people playing all the time, quick matches. Historical mode, or whatever it's called now, I don't care. Less people playing, more time to get matches. Realistic mode, good luck getting a freaking match. The only people that play those are like the absolute hardcore, and they don't mind, or at least they'll deal with 20-minute queues. I don't think 20-minute queues are reasonable. So here we are. We've got this whole, we got everything we have in MWO. We have all these things we want in the future. What's it going to mean? What are we going to do about it? And I'm sorry, I know I went on for 10 minutes there, but Phil,
you do you. I talk enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, I want everything too, but what do we do to make it so that it works?
Can I even toss this out here? What does it do to balance? What is no, and I think if you look at, we have solo, right, which was split from the group queue just in quick play, had a huge shift in implications on balance, right? Because beforehand you could only have a 4-man group, and then that went away. So now you have in group queue, and this is actually representation of CW as well, right? Because you can have a 12-man group in CW, which is actually a lot more lethal because you have more tonnage to play with, considering a 12-man is very, very limited in group queue. But you have a 12-man in CW that per tonnage player against possible mixed groups. And when I look at this whole conundrum, the one thing I always worry about is, do you have the players and player base to sustain that? 2, what does the implications for balance mean? And then 3, what is the players, not balance, but what is their experience? And I feel like those 3 things. So and on top of this, so CW3 came out last Tuesday. Last Tuesday. It split the solo loyalist off, and also freelancers, but then we've already got a hotfix coming out tomorrow, which is going to put those back into with groups.
This is the second hotfix, by the way.
And I think the thing with that is, and in the description, I do believe it has to do with population. Basically, there's a problem, right? Is not enough players in said queue, so the wait times get longer. And my only problem with this solos being mixed back in with groups is, again, the sort of idea of balance and then player expectations. Is it fun? Is it enjoyable? And it's just another queue, another bucket that they're removing a bucket at least, so that's good. But then what does it do to the balance and the player perspective? And I feel like what we have here is we have sort of a sacrifice of balance in the group queue. I would say solo queue in quick play is probably the most balanced queue in the game, which means the control on the outcome of the match is not in your favor always, and you're not always going to win, and you're going to have different varying skill levels, and you're going to have people that are running mechs that you don't necessarily deem worthy, or whatever it is, or just one small error and you lose a match, whatever. Group queue, that starts to shift. dramatically in favor of the player group size skill on top of that. Any imbalances in any of the game modes or max and blah, blah, blah. And then, CW as well is now we have solos where, by the way, there's been multiple people have posted that have said, I came back and I've been enjoying the solo queue only in CW. That's about to be ripped out from under their feet. So I feel like we're in this weird conundrum of how much should the players get and what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like that's basically what you're saying is, oh, now here comes Solaris. Well, there's
Well,
another bucket.
yeah, we have a potential mess here, and I think we can do some forethought and maybe avoid some headaches or whatever. I'm just watching chat. There's a lot people are talking about respawns versus non-respawns. Um, it's funny because the gameplay style that I prefer, and this doesn't have to do with balance, but we'll get back to that, and that can be something you forward as far as this discussion goes. But I get that I'm kind of old school and that my preferred game style, it seems to me, at least with all the games that I play, my preferred game style is no longer popular, which is I like hardcore. I don't like respawns. I like the game to be more difficult. I don't like arcade modes unless I'm just totally fucking around and like have 20 minutes and I'm not going to play serious. But I like hardcore games. I like to play like I'm going, that I want to survive. What I see happen with respawn mode is that it changes player behavior. And some of you are going to be, yes, that's exactly. And I love it that way. And fine. I'm saying I'm probably in a total minority here. But what I see, for example, and I'm going to use Dreadnought as an example today, is when you have respawns, people become suicidal. They just don't care. They're going to charge in there. They're going to Leroy.
I'm going to
back.
They're
going to die.
I'm going to
go.
go.
You can defend it, and they're going to just do it over and over again. And I kept seeing that happen. And the people with the most points also had the most deaths. So it almost paid off to just freaking charge in there over and over. Now this is in closed beta. Totally gameplay could change or whatever. But I'm just using an example. I think that respawns, in my opinion, changes player behavior for the worse for what I like.
But that's off topic. We're not talking about
Yeah.
respawn. We're talking about
No, I know.
We're talking about buckets, and even then, I would say that doesn't matter because you have one life in MWO, and you have people that run off and die and would do that regardless. It's
That's true.
It's the fact of you do not have control over what another player does, and that at any given time,
frustrating as hell.
And welcome to pretty much multiplayer, any type of every game out there, and there's nothing you can do about it, and that having that expectation that and pointing a finger and say you're ruining this experience is sort of like a double negative because that's welcome. That's the freedom of a lot of free to play.
Maybe ruining the experience for them. They want to play it their way. I want to play it my way or whatever. And maybe the two. Let me ask you
a question. Well, what are some solutions here? Because we have a solo queue. Oh, by the way, we have actually multiple queues because in solo, by the way, you have tier 1 through 3 solo, and then you have a solo tier 5 through 2, right? So just in solo mode and quick play, you already have 2. Now that can potentially go down to 1 depending on the population of solo. Let's just say in a weird off time zone, the population gets low enough and people have to wait. So now you may only have one queue in solo. So you potentially could have a tier 1 player versus a tier 5 or tier 4. Probably very rare because solo battles kick off left and right. Even group queue, you have multiple levels. You have the exact same issue, but so you already have 4 buckets just in those 2. Then you go to CW currently until tomorrow. Currently,
well, if you're using matchmaking as a bucket, then World of Tanks has a shit ton of buckets.
Yeah, but that's right. A bucket. But that is technically. No, it is because what you're doing is you're pulling X population out of any given moment out of being able to play with another group or another person or play. So now you have on top of that, now you have CW where it doesn't have PSR. Right, it doesn't have a skill, but you have solos or freelancers doing their own thing mixed with solo loyalists, which is about to be removed tomorrow. But you throw in Solaris, then we have another bucket. Here's another thing. It doesn't necessarily have to do with buckets, but it's sort of pertinent, and that is CW and being 24/7. Now, the reason I sort of see this as a big question mark, and I've been very vocal about this, is if you, Darren, if you play CW and your clan or unit, your whatever you play for, wants you to participate 24/7, but you don't have all the time in the world, and they need you in X mech or whatever, well, you make more money in solo or group playing, right? And you're not but you're expected to be on CW, and we have this thing where CW is literally a time sink, and is the trade-offs amount of time you put into it worthwhile as a player and or as an individual unit, to where you can get more C bills and grind, do whatever grind in the group queue and be a lot more successful. And I sort of feel like that does play in to player choices of whether or not I'm going to be in this queue or I'm going to be in this, which again swings the balance of buckets. How many people are in this bucket and that bucket? And then you go to Solaris. Let's just say they keep CW how it is 24/7. Then you introduce Solaris. That's more enticing potentially to higher skilled, mediocre skilled pilots to participate. Is it 24/7 as well? How many 24/7 queues where you want players to be constantly active in? And is that the right approach, to have buckets that are literally where we want you in this bucket 24/7 instead of group queue or solo queue? Is there room for both? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I feel like there's a solution out there, but it's no matter what, it's going to make some people happy and some people not happy. I think well, okay, so here's my solution for that. I feel like solo queue is good. Keep solo queue essentially how it is now.
Quick play solo. You say it's good.
Quick
Okay.
play, solo queue, random battle, solo queue. I feel like random battles, group queue. Now, just bear with me all the way through the end of this, and I know people are going to go crazy when I say some of this stuff, but whatever. I'm giving you an idea, a possibility for a solution, and it could totally be edited and modified or whatever. But this is, in my mind, this would work, or at least be a starting point.
Tell us, Spirit of Wisdom.
Tell us. So, solo group or solo random battles, group random battles, drop to 4 players or less. In other words, a lance is the max that you can have in random battle group queues.
Okay.
How it used to be and how it is in most, similar free-to-play games.
Okay.
3 or 4 people in the group queue. Now everybody, group. What do I want? I have 5 friends and I have 10 friends and 12 friends, whatever. So I think if we're going to keep community warfare 24/7, and that's obviously something that is debatable or could be debatable, then therefore make the 5+ man groups go to community warfare. That's where you can do the large groups. Now, people will say, well, but there's not enough people in there. You wait 20. Well, if all the 5+ man groups are herded essentially to community warfare, you add more people to the queue and you get quicker matches. Okay, so kind of takes care of that thing. As far as, I mean, obviously we have different things. You have the solo queue and community warfare. You have the scout missions. I don't know how to incorporate all that.
Should the solos be incorporated in CW with all the issues it potentially causes, or mixed group sizes?
That's a debatable thing. And
we're here sort of talking about buckets.
No, I know. And so let's come back to that. Okay. So I don't know on that, but I'm thinking at least herd the 5+ man groups, which totally, in my opinion, throw off the balance in the random battle group queue. Push them towards community warfare. If you want to be an organized group, if you want to play in 12 mans, the big stuff or whatever, larger groups, head to community warfare. So then what does that do for Solaris? In my mind, Solaris would be great for more like just status, leaderboard, maybe prizes at the end of each season or something like that. Do 4 seasons a year or whatever. But you don't earn C-bills and experience. So therefore, if you're wanting to earn C-bills and experience, you're still either having to play the random battles or you're having to play community warfare. So we populate people in there still for grinding up, getting their riches, whatever. And then Solaris is literally just for EPs and so forth, and fun, of course, but you're not going there as an alternative to earn C-bills or experience. I don't know if this is work. I know a lot of people want Solaris. I want Solaris, but that was literally just off the top of my mind last couple of days. I'm sure tons of you have thought better solutions or whatever, but I just feel like if we're putting solo people here, and here, and then groups here, and here, it's just too spread out. And so
can I toss out an idea? Could you technically, okay, so solo, the solo queue, regardless of what you just proposed or what we have now, is the exact same. You could technically have a leaderboard for solos right now, a ranked queue, if you will. Now, granted, what we were talking about a few podcasts ago, town hall, the plus or minus zero sum factor would have to go in, right? So you'd go up in rank or you'd go down depending if you lose. But you could technically do that in solo. Now, group queue, as it currently stands, you couldn't do that with. If you went to a 2 or 3 man group max or something like that, where you always had to have a group in the group queue to drop or something like that, or whatever, you technically could do a leaderboard like that. But I still think one of the problems I see is you have multiple buckets that are trying to cater to too many things. Community warfare is trying to cater to the solo individual player that says, you're important, you matter, we want you to participate. But the reality of it is it creates a whole host of problems, which again affects the player experience. It affects balance. Now, we've talked about this on multiple occasions off air, which is like World of Tanks. They don't have a 24/7 Clan Wars. They have from a North American time zone on the North American server, you play from like what, 9 p.m. Eastern to like 12 or whatever, and 24 hours ahead of time, who you're going to be dropping, how many drops you have, what planets they are, what game modes they are, what any restrictions, and then the rest of the time you go in the group queue or even ranking, and that's where you guys are. So it doesn't force you to be 24/7, and that minimizes the bucket load on their clan wars. And I feel like that doesn't cater, by the way, to individual pilots. Now, that doesn't mean you can't drop in small groups, by the way. What that means is, for instance, I made this example yesterday. In World of Tanks, how they have it, if you have 3 battles, right, you potentially don't give a shit about Battle A, Battle B, but you care about Battle C in the territory. So that's where you load up your best, like let's just say mech warriors, and you focus on. But the other 2, you don't want those necessarily to be freebies, so you may drop 2 or 3 people on them, and if they, you know what I'm saying, like that. So anyways, I just feel like the notion of solo players and or the ability to have mixed groups and not really actual units out there, I just feel like it's catering too much, and it creates issues of balance and player experience. Because what did we see? Player experience. Oh no, street crows. Solo people are just murdering. But then you have group units that are like, street crows don't really matter if you're organized and you're dropping with other mechs. But it's the fact of, so I just see all these problems where group queues trying to cater towards big groups. Solo queue is in good position right now, but it used to not be, right? I mean, so I just feel like too many buckets. It's just
too many buckets, no doubt about it. Real quick, I just want to let everybody know that this is, while Phil and I do work for Piranha Games, we are only discussing our opinions right now. It does not necessarily reflect the opinion of PGI.
Nope.
This is just our experience. We've been playing the patch just like you guys have been, and just relaying how we feel about it. But anyway,
Russ knows how I feel about group queue. Trust me.
I mean, we've talked about this before. We've talked about this with Russ before. We've even talked about doing the community warfare the way World of Tanks does Clan Wars, which is interesting. I jumped over into World of Tanks over the last couple of weeks. I've been talking to some of my friends that are still there, still playing Clan Wars. They've drastically overhauled Clan Wars, and in a lot of people's minds, it's for the worse. So, but it's still scheduled, and they've always had it that way.
Let's go on a limb here. If MWO and PGI did say CW is only for units, it would piss off a lot of people. But I feel like that's a problem in itself, because, well,
there's
what is the alternative,
we can do
right?
to fix the solutions without pissing people off. There's literally nothing. There's
you
nothing we can do.
You reduce group down to just 4 men, you're pissing someone off, right? Yeah. And that's the thing, is at what point in time is it just like...
But literally, if all you do is make decisions that make everybody happy, then we will have literally all these different queues and not enough people to fill the buckets. And is that ultimately going to make people happy? Sometimes, as a developer, you've got to make the grown-up decision and do what's better for the game in the long run. And that's going to be the hard thing, because, we don't want to piss off the player base or whatever. So it's really coming up with the best solution that makes the least amount of people angry. But I think the most important thing is the best solution for the long run. We do want our Solaris. We do want these things.
Is it best solution for the game? Is it best solution for balance and or player experience? Because all three of those factors come into play, and I feel like that's a freaking checkers and game. Yeah, that's a chess game Russ has to play, is saying, if I do X to said Q, or if I do X to said group, or if I make, then he's got to deal with the repercussions of, I mean, sort of like, mechs coming out. Oh, I want a refund, screw you, blah, blah, blah. And then that's affecting the bottom line. And whether or not people like to hear that, that's a reality, is he has to worry about the bottom line, which is this decision affecting our income? And that is something, you talk to any game developer, that is an underlying factor. And if anybody says that's not, they're bullshitting you. It
Don't
is
know how to
a
run a
huge
business. But
factor.
I do want to be clear, when we're talking about reducing the group queue to 4-mans, that doesn't mean 4v4. That just means the largest group in that queue can be
Well,
4. So
let's talk about that for a second.
mhm.
Last time we had um, a PTS, we had 8-man battles, and how many, literally, remember this? It was the next day. How many people were saying we want an 8-man queue? And then Russ came on the town hall and said, we're not really thinking about that. That is something to me that's intriguing, which is, if you have such a huge vocal minority that says, we're digging this 4v4, we're digging the 8v8, is that something to potentially look into? I mean, to me, look,
It
from
may
a
be.
gamer, is it valid? I mean, what would it do to the group queue, or what workload would that do? Because I mean, just removing the people down to 8v8 again, really, I mean, you would have to fix spawn locations and a few things for matchmaker, I assume, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. And if anything, it would give you more matches potentially, because, right, less people in per match, right? So
Yeah, but also, I mean, we don't know the full picture on that. So yes, people like the 8v8 thing, but that, or the 4v4, but that might have just been because it was different and a change of pace. We've been playing this game for 3, 4 years. So anything different is like, ooh, for a while. And then, so then how long until people are like, I want 12v12 or whatever, because then that's different. I don't know. I think that definitely we should look into it, and that, there were enough people saying they liked it. CK16, thank you for subbing for 3 months in a row. Thank you for the support, dude.
guys, let's give
Um,
him some gizmos in chat.
yeah,
Some
let's give him some
gizmos.
gizmos.
Maybe a
Is that what we're
beard.
giving now?
Well, it depends on, like, I mean,
Give him the
if it's
coffee.
like 20 months,
Coffee
we're like,
mugs.
give him the beard. He
Yeah.
he deserves the beard. But
Anyway, thanks, CK. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it's that's the thing. We didn't go into this knowing the answer. We just knew that it was a lot of questions, and like we mentioned, we're however many months or next year or whatever away from Solaris. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the status of that is. But we're just going to be adding more things, PVE, co-op possibilities all down the line. We got to figure out a way to make it so that all these queues are populated and people are getting matches, and there's not a lot of crazy frustration.
but I feel like there there are some answers there, which is, if you, now, from a strictly maybe objective, just game balance, I've been on this rant for the longest time, which is having 4+ man groups. Then you see in CW that the huge shift of imbalances between, you have a potential mixed group against a full group and all this, and that doesn't necessarily change, by the way, even with World of Tanks, right? Per se, you could have a 4-man or 5-man group drop and they're facing 12-man, because territory A or whatever battle team, 12-man actually wants to win or whatever.
Are you
Um,
talking about community or
yeah, like
community
CW,
warfare?
even
Yeah.
if you did that, but I'm just looking at the big picture, is people are like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, Solaris and this and that, and which is awesome. But what does
Be
that
careful
what
what
does
you
it what
wish
does that
for.
do? Because again, my big issue is, you have community warfare right here in this hand, and it expects you to be on there 24/7. And one of the problems is, with territories swapping hands, you have different time zone warfare that's occurring, where planet A swaps hands when you go to bed, you wake up and it's in someone else's hands, or the attackers were doing really well, and hey, and I just feel like the only problem with that, though, is if you were to split that, that means you have to have another regional server for Europe. Well, do they have the population to have that sustainable and stuff? I mean, and then, I mean, you just get into, what about Oceanic? Sorry, Aussies, you guys just get screwed. Like, I feel like CW and all the buckets and 24/7 that it causes would only conflict more so with a Solaris that's potentially where a lot of players would want to be, especially competitive players and high skilled players, where you may have a solo 1v1, you may have, I mean, and that even offers up another potential problem. How many more buckets would Solaris potentially add? What about a co-op? Are they going to introduce co-op? Is it going to be PvE down the road? Are we even talking about the same game? Would MechWar Online, is it one of those things where Russ says in, like, let's just say 2 years, hey guys, I'm about to drop a bomb on you. Boom, here's, MechWar Universe or whatever the next title, and it has multiplayer, and it's using the next Unreal. I don't know. I mean, and that's the type of thing. I'm just looking at it as currently, I feel like we have way too many buckets and way too much choice, and it causes X balance of player experience, balance, and
it's hard because number one, all these other games that are coming out, for the most part, they don't have the history and the lore behind them. Now, of course, can't really say that about World of Tanks because real
it's
history.
loosely
anyway,
based on reality.
But the point I'm getting at is that we have, you have MWO casual players, lots of them, lots and lots of them, and you have MWO BattleTech enthusiasts, plenty of them, and maybe even the ones that are supporting the game for everybody else. I don't know, but anyway, my point is, you're constantly having to balance between making the game as playable and as fun as it can possibly be under the circumstances. In other words, what we're talking about now, the group queues and the amount of buckets that you get in and how long it takes to get into a match and so forth. That's just quality of life as far as the game goes. And you want that to be as positive as possible, but it's not always about time and not always about simplifying. In fact, plenty of people within my gamer groups feel like the gaming industry is going in the wrong direction. Everything is being simplified, just flat out simplified. You look at the big developers the games are putting out, and I hear a lot of complaints. Now, again, this is from my gaming groups, that everything's just getting dumbed down. And so there's plenty of people that want even MWO to get more involved, more logistics. You hear that all the time, more lore, more logistics. But then watching chat here, you got people saying that the new user experience is atrocious, which I understand. If you come into this and you're not a BattleTech Mech Warrior fan for a decade or more, whatever, and it's a totally different experience than the rest of us who've been playing mechs forever. So what did I just say? Basically, that it's just, it's a confusing situation. It's not easily solved, in my opinion, and there's a lot of people to pay attention to that are on absolute, it's like Republicans and Democrats, man, absolute opposite sides of the fence, will not listen to each other, and somehow you got to make everybody or the most people happy.
And I think another thing to sort of say is, what decisions does PG have to do? Because we've just basically agreed, me and you both, that any decision direction they go in, they're going to piss someone off. And then on top of that, someone could say, well, why don't you just ask the community? The community doesn't know his ass from its elbow, because you're going to have just as split thoughts. I mean, it does. It's going to be one side says, I want this, and the other side says, no, you're a moron because I want this. And so, and it could be for whatever reasons and all the in between. I mean, it's even like me and your opinion. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things at all. It's not like our opinion is weighted more. It's just the fact of, if you try to look at it as objectively as possible, there are definitely some hard decisions that have to be made, or at least if they're not made, we can see the potential implications of the said outcome. And I don't know, it's one of those where I remember, and the reason why this is so memorable, from the split from solo to group, which I think, and I still believe, was the best route, except for it went from 4-man groups all the way up to 12. And I remember that day because I went on my honeymoon, and I was under the impression, because in the patch notes, or ahead of time, right, we were told, oh, it's going to make group queue and solo, sort of like blah, blah, blah. But then when I came back, it was 4 to 12. And I still think that had large ramifications for balance and players' experience. And that sort of is catered over towards CW. So I don't know, man. CW, I wonder how many people would be pissed off if they couldn't be a solo player anymore. But is that... is that acceptable to you as a player? Like, who you played competitively in World of Tanks, like, a lot. Is that acceptable?
Well, I mean, it's acceptable, unacceptable. I don't know if those are the questions. I think it's just more like, I feel it's going to have to get to a point where we have some tough love. And my feeling on this, again, my personal feeling, is that community warfare is really meant to be a team thing. It's meant to highlight, focus on cooperative team play. And while I totally, totally freaking understand people wanting to drop it in solo, and maybe there's a solution for that, I feel like it should default to community warfare is the group thing. And that's why I think that the random battle group queue should be 4 players or less, and anybody who wants to do 5 players or more on a team should be herded to community warfare. That's just one idea. I'm not saying this is the best idea.
Yeah, no. And I get you, and I agree. I think there does have to be tough love. I'd even go even longer and saying currently with CW, faction warfare, whatever you want to call it, we have multiple buckets in that, which is the different factions. And I was under the impression it would be more clan versus IS. And I feel like that's another sort of sticking point, which is in this timeline, you basically had the clans invading and everyone sort of banded together, IS side, and was like, hey, we're going to hold off on confrontations between us. Because, God, can you imagine that? Because you already sort of have that per se. Like, okay, so my unit right now is on a Davian contract. Now we're almost over, but I just did it just for the initial creation of the unit. The problem lies is I can only engage in battles with just Davian versus whoever. And right now it's like Liao. Right? Now I can participate and have my unit participate in all the clan border battles, but I can't help out with Steiner versus, Free Worlds League or whatever. And I just feel like you basically have all these other buckets just get rid of and just have a few contested planets at a time. I don't know, again, the logistics, but it should be IS versus clan globally across the board. And I think if it was even, because we don't need, we have I just feel like that's another contentious thing, that it creates so many buckets. And do we really need as many buckets as that? Why not just have, say, clan versus IS? It's about clans invading and IS getting their shit together and banding together. And why have all these other borders? And I was sort of under the impression that was CW when they said consolidate sort of planets and stuff. I was sort of under the impression they were going more IS versus clan. There's no reason for the other border politics. And maybe at said time they say, hey, now that population is geared, we'll start opening it up maybe for whatever. But I don't know. That's a pretty big change in itself to what they have right now. So
Forced induction. Forced induction sounds like he's new to MWO. He's not new to Mech Warrior. He's saying, because earlier I referenced that some people are having issues with the new player experience. He's saying his new player experience wasn't that he couldn't figure out how to play mechs, as he is a Mech Warrior veteran, but it was about the grind, and he feels the grind is too brutal. Just would like to point out, forced induction, we get told all the time that the grind is better than most games. Not saying that it is. I'm not saying that it is or it isn't, but I'm just saying for every opinion like yours, there's somebody on the other side that is saying the opposite. And so I'm not saying your opinion doesn't counter.
The grind to get into CW is a little bit different because you at least
I know.
You at least need 4 mechs, modules if you don't have modules, and if you don't have said mechs that are pertinent.
He's made 20 million C bills, built 1 mech. How do you play CW? The answer is the trial mechs. The trial mechs are actually good builds. You can use them in CW.
No, you know what the answer is? This is tough love. You shouldn't be playing CW. And that's the problem.
I agree with that, actually.
That's the problem, is no one wants to say you, as an individual, should not be playing. One, you don't have enough experience.
You play World of Tanks. You're not playing shit in 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, as far as clan wars, And I get people are not going to want to hear that. Fuck you. I want to play community warfare. But
join a
reality
unit.
Is reality. I mean, yeah, you've got to join a unit. I mean, and that is what I feel. Maybe it's not the answer, and I think it's you have similar viewpoint, Phil. But yeah, I just don't feel that's the problem. We are saying, hey, so everything's open to everybody all the time, 24 hours a day, and we're just not filling the queue.
It was very interesting and a humbling moment last week when I was playing CW. It was patch day, and I had solo. I was a freelancer at the time, and I had solo scout missions all night. And then one time, I got a regular invasion mode. We were defending Q. Now, it was crazy because all of us were solo freelancers versus a Davian 12. There were solos as well, loyalists. And it was crazy because the comms I heard, you had people asking, what do I do? And that's not necessarily an indication of bad. It's just the fact of, you had guys that had never played CW before, that they saw a call to arms, they clicked on it, and boom, they're in CW. And I guess this is we're on the topic of buckets here because I think it's very pertinent. But I don't think that said player or said players, any solo individual, should be in community warfare. Now, that brings me to my next question. Is CW the competitive sort of scene for MWO? And when you use the term competitive, by the way, some people take it as like a site of, like you have to be Uber, SGR, top of the, blah blah blah, EMP, all the whole 228, all those guys. No, what I'm saying,
define
competitive where it's balanced and even, and that, for instance, for the most part, you're going to get 12v12 sort of matches, and that said team A knows what the hell is going on, and said team B knows what the hell is going on, and either or could potentially win the match at the very beginning. And I think that is sort of the pertinent thing is right now you have a 12-man group that can drop, and they freaking group stomp 24/7 or pug stomp. And that's why I was okay with solos being pulled out at the very beginning, because they're just cannon fodder. And to me, that's not appropriate. That ruins the how many people do we know that have stopped playing CW because of that? And then on top of that, it's the repetitive sort of game modes where in CW, which again, it's just sort of another big slap in the face to newer players where they're just getting killed off right, is you've got lanes and strategies and stuff that solo players are going into not prepared whatsoever, and they're just getting raffle stomped. Like, and that's not enjoyable. And I feel like that is one of the problems of having those buckets of saying, hey, solo player, yeah, you should be able to participate in all this. And then it's like, well, enjoy your experience.
Forced induction. I am gonna say, actually those trial mechs were designed by the community, so they're as close to being basically meta mechs as we can get right now. I'm sure there'll be another pass on those trial mechs, but honestly, you're not getting stomped because of that. I'm gonna say, with what you just said there, that I don't think community warfare is where you should be. And hey, right now it's in the game, and if you want to play it, you play it. But I just don't think that community warfare, well, my personal opinion is that it's a New Year's experience, or should be.
It's him saying, hey, I'm actually decently skilled. That has nothing to do with it. You're not losing because of modules and meta. You're losing because the other team potentially has a lot more communication, organization, and know-how about the game and the game modes. Which, yes, again, so for instance, and we're talking about,
which comes with time, experience, getting in a unit, learning things.
And your experiences may be very minute, whereas maybe you've never actually dropped against a 12-man. You could say, well, how often is that, or how often is it? And that's what we're talking about, is sort of the I guess the norm or extremes. Well, I wouldn't even say norm or extremes, is sort of the idea that 12-man should be out there. I mean, they're going to be dominant. So it's one of those where I just feel that catering towards and creating all these buckets creates other problems, which has to do with balance and player experience. And if player experience it's destroyed, you're not going to have anybody stay. And then on top of that, like I said, how many people have we talked about that don't play CW because the game modes are very just, here's your lane 1, here's your lane 2, here's your lane 3 potentially, and you've got wall A and turrets, and there's no dynamic to the maps. Like, whereas
But devil's advocate, there's people out there that prefer that mode too.
Yeah,
there's people on both sides. So yeah,
but I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, I enjoy getting my ass stomped by a 12-man because I'm a solo or I'm a mixed 3-4 man group. And that's where I say is, well, then what is the solution? And is the solution something that you're not going to like just because it potentially excludes you? Or we can say, you know what, you need to join a unit. And the one thing I will say, and I said this last week, which is I freaking love the leaderboards for CW right now, Faction Warfare, because if you say, hey, that unit, it's win-loss ratio, it's kill-death ratio, I want to be a part of that, so you're going to potentially try to contact a recruiter or whatever and get into that unit. And that's what I feel like people should be doing. It shouldn't be this, cater and creating all these buckets and problems, because it's almost like, not necessarily this, it's the solo players that have demanded, I want to participate. but it ruins the other solo players that have no idea and they enter and they
It's
get it
funny.
massacred.
Unfortunately, the people that are going to be watching this podcast later or listening to it, they can't see chat because, I mean, chat is just, for me, this is why this is such a hard problem, issue, and solution, is because everybody just freaking disagrees.
Yep.
I mean, you have people in there that agree
Well,
with each other, but everybody's freaking disagreeing. And no, my perspective, my opinion is the one that matters. No, my perspective and my opinion, no, and it's
yep.
just nonstop. Which I'm not. Again, I'm sitting here saying my perspective. I just happen to have the platform. Um, I think we've covered this as much as you and I can. Why don't we see if there's some people, maybe we can reiterate some of the things that are being said, see if you can find something that's interesting, maybe answer some of the questions from live chat before we close out today's podcast. A lot of opinions, and this is something that, most of the people that are here watching the podcast are pretty diehard MWO fans or just MechWarrior Battletech fans or whatever, and so we got to keep that in mind, that we probably don't have as many of the casuals here, but obviously a lot of opinions and passion about this game and
Well,
the Battletech
could
MechWarrior
could I
universe.
even propose something? Is what Even though yes, this is our opinion, Darren, we also have a different perspective per se than some because we do ask, like, for instance, why aren't you playing CW? We asked that to Bandit recently, right? And he gave us a clear and reasonable answer, right?
He doesn't like lanes and he doesn't like 20-minute queues.
Right? And
Yep.
so then you could say, hey, you just participated in solo, never seen you play again. Why aren't you playing in CW? Well, I don't like getting my ass stomped and and the rushing out of the gates and just literally spawn killing us. Understood, right? And I listen and I hear everything I say or everything they say, and that's just sort of what's coming out from this discussion, which is it's not necessarily always my experience. It's others that I've talked to, and then not just others that I've talked to, that when you hear the same thing being repeated multiple times in this sort of secular cycle where it's just like, okay, then obviously there's something going on there. And I think with all this, I'll be the first one to admit it's a tough decision. Like it, like everyone's like, Paul, Russ, Paul. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes just because they make a decision and someone's gonna get pissed off. Look at the Twitter discussion that happened. Now, granted, some people are like, well, you shouldn't be on Twitter. That's a whole nother discussion. 45 tons from 55 tons. Just asked. That's all he asked. He wasn't saying, hey guys, I'm making this decision tomorrow. He just asked whether or not you agreed with it or you liked the idea, but just how many different opinions you had about it, even in the veteran community and guys that have been around for years. You've literally had a completely and that's where it's really tough. With all this being said, is it's just our opinion, guys. It doesn't really mean shit in the big grand scheme of things. So if you disagree with us, that is completely fine. It is all right. We understand.
Ortha comes from Side Strafe Stream. Welcome, Ortha, into the community. TK, I think you're misunderstanding what he's saying there, but basically he's saying that if you have a competitive corner of your game or area of the game, we shouldn't be excluding people from that. We should make it inviting to them and teach them how to play the competitive aspect. Now, I get what you're saying, Ortha, and I'm not saying that your opinion doesn't matter or that's not correct, but my feeling is that's like saying, I don't know, this could be a bad example, but like, you know what, let's just let everybody play pro football. To me, that's going to make the experience less. It's not like, I do feel like some things in life have to be earned and deserved. Now, of course, we're talking about a video game and not jobs in real life or whatever, but I don't just think that necessarily, and it depends on the game and the build or whatever, everything should be available for everybody. I do think that there's things that you need to work hard to achieve or get into a group to be able to do or whatever. So I understand what you're saying, but I do disagree.
Well,
I think that
it's like group queue right now. You could say could potentially be a lot more competitive, but one of the things missing from that is the fairness, right? The balance of it is said group versus said group. And what I do get what he's saying though is saying that, potentially you could teach people. It's like sort of why is this meta? Why is this mech min max setup working? Why is this group, setup of these mechs so dominant? and understanding the mechanics behind it. Short laser time, heat gen, the poke ability of, right side,
But
left
where do you
side
get that
setups.
training?
Well, you have to play, and that's the
Join a
sort of,
group.
yeah. Well, or you're very,
I mean, yeah, you can YouTube
like,
videos and watch streams and do solo research or whatever and figure it out. You
but
can certainly do
I,
that. But
I
joining a group is like the fast
how
track
many how
to
many
learning
how
all this
many
stuff.
people look at the end of the day, and the tournament's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to highlight this. Some groups are already calling who's going to win or whatever, but at the end of the day, how many people actually put in the time and effort as some of these groups that are out there playing in MRBC, RHOD, and all this, where yes, you may have certain top teams out there, but guys, they got there because literally they're like right now there's groups that we
Oh,
know
well, I'll tell you.
that they
Yeah,
have mandatory practice
daily.
nights, and it's one of those where how many times have we, or at least on streams, I can't even count, how many times have I heard a comment that necessarily has to do with because you didn't want to put in the time or you don't accept the fact of this particular setup min max or this particular tactic is really effective and you just want it for whatever reason to try to level the playing field. There is no level playing field. They're good because they train over and over and over again. And the reason I think that's important is I think Ortha, that's what I saw out of that question, which is how do you promote that? Well, some of it is intrinsic. Like you have to want the need. That's why you don't have professional footballers everywhere or basketball players, right? Is because not
If it was
everyone,
easy to do,
like,
everyone would be doing it.
well, technically you could, right? A
Yeah.
lot of people have the potential out there. They're just lazy or they have other things. They have other,
that.
not even lazy. I take that back. They have other priorities in life. And well, I will say some people are lazy, but they have other priorities in life that take precedence over being a professional athlete or being, potentially
Professional esport
a
athlete
top,
or whatever.
MWO player and,
Yep.
what does that hold and blah blah blah. So I feel that I also see like even though I know we're sort of off the topic of buckets now, but I
Yeah.
see this term and sort of statement is we should concentrate more on new players. I feel like this is a very weird topic just because there's only so much you can do as a developer. And the reason why, and especially in MWO, is because it is such a complicated game. There's so many layers to it. And then on top of that, the difficulty of actually, one, being successful at the game. I think that's actually one of the key things is, being a teacher, it was, does the kid have success playing the sport? And the success doesn't necessarily mean they're winning. Do they understand the rules, the refereeing? Do they understand the boundaries, the tactics, the cues of playing whatever sport? That could be success in itself. But it's the idea that I just totally lost it there for a second.
Brain fart?
Yeah, but it's just the fact of
Yeah.
new player experience. Some people expect this huge look. MWO is a complicated game, like, and if you don't think it is, take a step back and look at Battlefield. Look at CS:GO. Look at World of Tanks. To a certain extent, and then you bring a new player in. Your buddy Journeyman, when he made the transition over, he had a little bit different experience. Why? Because he played tanks, he understood the sort of situational awareness and stuff like that. But it still was a completely different experience. And I feel like player retention is something where it's not. You're not going to capture everyone. It's a free-to-play title too. That's another thing. How many people bounce from one game to the other just because they're gamers and that's how it is. So.
Well, we're constantly told, constantly, I'm coming back to this after 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. People are always going away, coming back. And why would it be any different? It's the same thing I'm doing with all the games that I play. There's, a good 5 to 10 games that I'm constantly going back. Maybe there's updates, maybe whatever. My friends are back into it. And so, retention is different for these free to play games and other games. But yeah, the new player experience, I do agree that there's only so much that we can do as the developer to ease that experience, but there is more that we can do than we've done so far. And hopefully that continues to develop more in-game tutorials, for the Mech Lab, in-game tutorials for community warfare, whatever. But in the meantime, that responsibility
but
does
can
fall
you
on the community.
and that's the thing though, is can you stop someone from taking a said build just because they enjoy it? And of
Of course
course
not.
someone else points at him and be like, oh, you shouldn't take that setup because that's
Oh,
horrible.
you see these all the time. You get the
Right,
people.
but that's
So
what.
there's people that play just they don't care. I'm taking this Marauder because this is lore
But I
and it's
feel
the
like
one that
that
I
that
love.
that
And then there's
crosses
somebody in
over.
chat saying you're an idiot.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that crosses over with, well, that person, they're not getting enough training, or they have no idea.
Or there's going to be people that just don't effing care. They don't want the most optimal meta build. They're just logging on for half an hour, want to play, and they don't give a rat's ass
and
about
and
what's
and I
better
see
or
the other
getting
side
better.
of the story, which and I think this is also, to be honest, why a lot of actual like top tier players want sort of a ranked queue, is because when you drop solo, you don't know if the guy to your left and right knows jack shit. I mean, really,
Yep.
you don't know. And he may be on his fifth beer. He made whatever. He's got a kid yelling in the background. He doesn't give a shit. He had a long day at work. He just wants to blow stuff up. I do feel a lot of like top tier players want that ranked queue. Also, not only so they know the guy to my left or right knows what the hell they're doing, but also for the Steam and stuff like that. A little bit more competitive matches, and stuff like, where again, it's a different type of mentality. But yeah, you can't necessarily control another player's actions, and yeah.
No, and that drives me crazy in every game that we play.
Leroy Jenkins,
Dude,
right?
I mean, literally going back to Dreadnought today. I mean, it's literally only a 5-person team, 5v5, I think. Yeah, 5v5. Just those two players that weren't on our team because we had a group of 3. It was driving me insane. People just doing the dumbest things. Now, do I do dumb things? Sure, all the time. But it just, yeah, the lack of control in these free to play, group arena games or whatever can be insane. But anyway, we have gone all over the place off topic. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to bring up from chat?
No, I mean, like I said,
It's awesome. Thank you all for being here. I mean, we've got 122 people right now.
we do.
A lot of great familiar faces.
No, no,
And
again, I think it's one of those where my main concern with the buckets is just the idea of, in the near future, what potential game modes and or other attributes are coming that's going to add more buckets. We already see, and with the hotfix tomorrow, obviously the CW change for solos and groups created a bucket problem. But also, why are more people not in faction warfare? Well, we've had our ear to the ground. I've been experiencing it, and I can tell you why. Well, this could be a potential game breaker for a lot of people because of this, and it removes those people from bucket and puts them in this. So it's one of those things where I think tough love needs to happen. Two, I think people need to understand decisions they make you may not agree with and or like, but it may be better for the game, and that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. And it's one of those where sorry, but I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting. By the way, we totally have no idea what Russ is going to say on Friday about this, and so that's why Darren said at the very beginning, where some of this may just totally be irrelevant because Russ says, "Hey, we've sat down and we're going to be doing this, and this is sort of the roadmap for the next like month or 2 or 3." So, yeah.
yeah, we were going to chat with him today, but because of the hotfix and schedule, we weren't able
Except
to.
for a new
So
chat system. That needs to happen like tomorrow. That better be
tomorrow.
a part of the hotfix. That is completely true. Anyways, guys, just want to say thank you guys for coming out here. Thank you to Aces Poo, 5 months in a
5 months
row.
in a row.
Thank you for resubbing, Mech
Thanks,
Bro.
Ace.
Much appreciated, guys. Let's give him some love in the chat. I just want to say again a big thank you to our live listeners. You guys are awesome. Thank you again for coming out here. Our community, new and oldish, or old in Darren's case. By the way, that old man right over there turns like 432 next month. I don't know if you guys knew
Hey,
this.
May, dude, is both of our
It
birthdays.
is. That is sort of funny.
And Side Strafe.
That
May is
is
a good month for birthdays.
it's a great month. And of
Yeah.
course, I'd like to give a quick shout out to all of our subs and followers on the Twitch channel. Thank you guys so much for your support. Our Patreons, guys. And by the way, if you guys are interested in supporting NGNG, there's a few ways you can do it. One, down below, you can click that follow button. Goes a long way. Retweet, follow us on Twitter, YouTube, all that if you enjoy the content. And of course, you can become a subscriber and get emoticons like Gizmo, Thumbs Up, Boom, the Beard, and a few of me that are a little weird. And it goes a long way. And of course, check out our Patreon page too. And yeah, I just want to say, oh, by the way, speaking of Patreon, we will be updating ours in the near future because that guy right there and fam have decided to move out here. So, with that being said, we will be looking at getting an office space and some type of studio and setup. and I'm sure we'll let you guys know, and our Patreon will be updated so you guys can help us achieve our goals. But
we're definitely going to be doing a lot more. We have all kinds of cool plans, but yeah, we're a month 2 away or whatever. But anyway, yeah, thank you all. Earth Talker just says he just ordered the BattleTech tabletop box set. Awesome, Earth Talker. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the BattleTech community.
And of course, just want to say thank you to all of you guys out here. It really is. It's awesome seeing you guys. Zudicat, thank you for following the channel. And guys, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll probably see you
Bandit
tomorrow.
says his T-shirt is arriving tomorrow.
It is.
What T-shirt is that again?
It's
Maybe
this.
we should.
It's this one right here. It's the Timberwolf the Pixel. You're wearing the Atlas one.
I'm wearing the Atlas right there.
Oh yeah. So there's that. There's that. I'm petting.
My Atlas head is hidden under the beard.
I'm petting my Mad Cat. Don't mind me. All right, guys. This was your local No Guts No Galaxy MechWarrior podcast. Signing off for tonight. This is Phil.
And this is Darren.
Until next time, Mech Warriors. Bum, bum. Ooh, we almost had it in sync there. That was nifty. That was
Almost.
We'll
get it one day.
One day.
When we're in person, it'll be easy.
Yeah, high fives. That'll be.